Hi everybody. While watching World Rapid Chess Championship, I came across this interesting game by Magnus Carlsen. I'm sure most of you saw it. If not, you're welcome to check. That got me interested. As usually, Magnus was trying to squeeze water from the stone, and it worked. But when you look with the engine at this game, it seems like it was like one move blunder, and that was it. But I'll try to share a human perspective of what happened in this game. So the whole game, the position was about equal, including this endgame. This looks like a fortress, right? So black is solid, bishop is good. White has a bad bishop actually, but black has doubled pawns, so actually white is the one who's pressing. So they keep moving pieces, and here Magnus comes out with, I remember watching this game, he played 91, like what is he doing? He's definitely not going for repetition, right? And I realized that his knight goes to d5 to take that bishop and be left with bad bishop against good knight, but open the c file. So here's what happened. Rooks got exchanged, white cannot abandon the h file. So knight e3, king g7, knight d5, bishop d5, and pawn takes. And now white's king is ready to get inside black's position and come up with some sort of zugzwang. So here was the first moment where Nikita could have, Petrov Nikita by the way was his opponent, could have saved the game, making a human move knight b6, just stopping the king from approaching, right? Obviously white would continue with b4, takes, and king comes inevitably to c6, but the thing is, you shouldn't hold that pawn. Knight goes to c8, king c7, knight d6, and that's like an easy fortress. Knight will always have a place to go, and don't forget the pawn is hanging. So this was a clear fortress. But the position doesn't look dangerous at all, right? The king arrives to d6. That's it. How bad could it be? But there is a problem. Take a look. Bishop, improving the bishop, and now king goes to b7, and when king arrives, this is the position from the game, arrives to b7, suddenly black is in zugzwang. So, well, not exactly in zugzwang. So the knight cannot, if knight moves, the king will get through c8 and then will just go around and eat this pawn, and that would be it. Right? So Nikita tried king d7 and lost the game because after bishop b5 check, king d6, king b8 for example, waiting move, knight d7, takes, king b7, white wins the opposition in the pawn endgame, and king can go around, black goes c6, takes, and white is, well, the queens promote. This is how the game ended. The queens promote at the same time, and it's actually white to move, and white is winning because extra pawn, and this one's weakness. This is weak, and Magnus managed to win this game. But I was watching through chess24, and of course it gave zeros. It says knight takes c4, zeros. So this position got my attention because for me it was not an obvious zero. If it was black to move, white would win, right? If king d8, its king goes to c6, and if king d6, its king to c8. The engine gives zeros, but given the time control and time on the clock, I think Magnus would still want it. For example, white goes king to a8. Doesn't look logical, right? Where the hell is the king going? There's only one move, and it is not logical at all. The first two moves that probably would pop up in your head when you look at this one, it's king e8, holding the what they call a long opposition or distant opposition, right? 3 squares between the king, and try c6. Both are losing. c6 is losing to takes, and now king a7, and I inevitably come to b5, and that's it. So c6 of course loses, but what is wrong with king e8? In order to answer that question, we need to find corresponding squares, the topic I discussed previously. So, if white king is on b7, the only square for black king is d7, right? That's it. Any other square, the king goes inside. So that's it. We have a couple. right? but there's also b5 square, which is very reachable for white, right? So king can easily get to b5. So let's see if white's king gets to b5. No, let's imagine the king is on b5. Black's king obviously should be on d6, right? Otherwise c5 pawn is lost. That's easy. And you might think that's it. No, it's only the start of the drawing the picture of corresponding squares. So, and of course in those positions, if it's black to move, black is lost, right? So, sorry. If white's king, now let's remove all of this. So we remember these two squares, right? So if white king goes to a6, I can reach b7 and b5. Black should be able to reach these two squares accordingly. So if white goes king a6, the only square from which black's king can reach these two green squares is e7. The only move is king e7. So we found another corresponding square, a6 to e7, right? But let's move forward. We go king a7. If we go to b7, black should be able to reach d7. If white goes to a6, black should be able to reach e7. So where's the square? Is it d6? Is it e8? Is it d8? That becomes trickier. d6 is not working. King d6, we go king b8. King d7, king b7, we lose the close opposition. d6 doesn't work. So which is it? Black should be able to reach e7 and d7. It's either d8 or e8. d8 loses because white wins the opposition, and from where we started, black to move, white wins. So it's only e8 square that corresponds to a7. So unbelievably complicated and unusual corresponding squares. b7, d7, these two are obvious. But if we move forward, it's a6 to e7, it's a7 to e8, and king a8. We know that this is a mined square. You cannot go here because king b8 would win, right? And we know d7 is a mined square. The only corresponding square is e7, because if we go to b8, black goes to d8. b7 is d7, and a7 we already established it's e8. a6 it's e7. Too many arrows, right? b5, d6, and that's it. These are the corresponding squares, and so a8 corresponds to e7. So black would have to make a series of only moves for Magnus to agree for a draw. So, and I think the most challenging way to play this position is to quickly understand these corresponding squares and start from the most difficult one, king a8 or king a7, arguably. King e7, that would be very difficult for black to play here, king e8. It's not logical at all. c6 is logical, e7 is logical, but king e8, what is that? King e8 is the only move in this position. And if white goes king a8, it's king e7 only move. Weird corresponding squares. Usually you would think about opposition. It is not. So those zeros from engines could be extremely misleading. Black would have to find a series of only moves, which is in time trouble almost impossible, especially if Magnus would have played in this position king a7 or king a8. Extremely difficult way to handle these positions, but this is how you start. You find the obvious ones, b5 to d6, b7 to d7, and then you look at adjacent squares. a6 corresponds to e7, that should come also, not that hard, but then you move forward. For example, white can go to a5. What would be the corresponding square to that? It would be only d7, because from a5 I can go to a6 and b5, and we follow the arrows. We have to be able to go to d6 and e7, thus d7. So a5 corresponds to d7. The only square for black is d7. Extremely difficult. So white can go a8, a7, then come back to a5, and black would be struggling here. But that would be a draw with the right play. So there was a lot under the surface of these zeros from Stockfish on Chess24 or whatever engine you prefer. So these corresponding squares are very unlikely, but I'm glad it almost sort of happened. in a game of world champion. So I hope you liked and understood all these weird arrows. Okay, I'm gonna remove, I forgot how to remove arrows. Anyway, in this position, these are the arrows: b5 to d6, b7 to d7, a6 to e7, a5 to d7, a7 to e8, b8 to d7, and a8 to e7. Enjoy those arrows, with only square for black king to b if white steps on any of those squares. Only square is available to not lose. Very difficult, very beautiful in my opinion. I hope you enjoyed it. See you later.